Hi, how are you? Good, see you again. It's good to see you again. Hi, hello, welcome back. Now we can say welcome back to the Mom Can We Talk podcast, a podcast where we have uncensored conversations that everyone else wishes that they could have with their kids, with their parents. You have to say who you are, though.
Oh, but I'm Lia. I'm Paige's mom.
And I'm Paige, Lia's daughter.
Last time we met, you had a opening question.
A icebreaker.
Icebreaker.
You want to do an icebreaker?
Let's do an icebreaker.
Okay, well I have some.
Okay.
Ready? Same thing as last time. 3 questions, and you just have to rapid fire your answers. Have you ever done drugs?
No.
Do you still think about a guy in your past?
Sure.
And do you judge me for my choices?
We can talk about that.
Sounds like a yes. Okay, so today's topic, which you wanted to do, you were the one that wanted to do this topic specifically right now because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So our topic today is going to be mental health.
Yes.
And we are both somewhat experts in it. You have a lot of education around it. You work with a lot of like families and that comes up and stuff like that. And I'm just a mentally ill person, but my content niche on TikTok, that's one of the things is mental health awareness and getting rid of the stigma and just having open conversations. That's one of like the parts of my platform.
So first of all, I hate it when people put out the word expert. I'm not an expert, but this is a passion of mine.
Yes.
It's something that I have studied. It's why I do the work that I do.
We're not experts on it,
No.
but we know some things on it because you went to school for it and I just mentally ill.
We're passionate about it.
Yes, passionate about it. We're gonna get right into it about like when you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Because now I feel like we're all living in a time where it seems like everyone has some mental health thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it like when you were growing up?
Around mental health?
Yeah, was there a stigma around it? I don't think that it was as talked about.
Probably the first time I realized that something was going on was when I was about 5 or 6 for me. Pretty bad OCD. You're going to relate to this because it's similar to what you've had. So having to wash my hands all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Having to, even when I went to bed at night, then having to get up and wash my hands because I might have touched something. I remember having like fly strips, those nasty fly strips.
Ew, yeah.
And in my mind, I thought I touched the fly strip, but didn't think I did. So there's, this whole mental exhaustion on, did I do it? Did I not do it? And then having to get up and wash my hands to do it.
We are cut from the same cloth.
Well, but there's probably a reason, right? So yeah, so that continued. And then as I got older, just a lot of anxiety. And then also wondering to myself, was I going crazy at a fairly young age? And not really being able to have anybody to talk to about it. Not feeling comfortable that I could go to my mom. All the scenarios that play out in your head, are you going to be judged at school? Am I going to be put into, some sort of mental hospital? All of these things that played out. Growing up, did you talk about mental health with your friends?
Not until I was in high school.
I think for you, there was a lot of, on my part, not ignoring, being aware, but going, this can't possibly be it. And what do I do? And so even as a parent, there was kind of like stigma around your mental health.
It was extremely bad, my mental health.
Right.
From probably the time that when we lived in Australia.
Oh,
I think
really?
that's when it started. And so I was like 9 or 10. I think that's where it really started when you enter, 13, 14, 15, when all of your emotions and hormones are so heightened. And it's another situation where you're in a little nutshell. In high school, you are in your own little world. And I think everyone struggles in some way when they're emotionally and mentally when they're in high school because it's tough. But that's when it really got bad when I lost my virginity. That whole relationship when I was 14, that was when I first had my depressed episode where I was not sleeping. That was when it really, really, really got bad. But I think before then, when I was like 9 or 10.
That's interesting because I didn't know that.
Yeah.
When we were 9 and 10. What I think I first realized something was up was and I kick myself for this too, is that when you couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah.
And I, not shame you, but highly aggressively encouraged you to get out of bed.
So you were like, I am different and I am weird and something's going on. And you thought you were very much so the only person experiencing it.
And then fast forward, again, still a lot of OCD around being sick. Getting sick terrified me. Not getting a cold or any of that, like vomiting, anything that it had to do with that. Freaked me out. So I'd make sure that I didn't touch anything or I wouldn't hang around anybody that was potentially ill. Then you and your brother come and it just heightens that much more.
I have something very serious to say to you.
Yes.
How dare you?
Say more.
You have anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
My father, questionably undiagnosed depression. Just a sad guy. How dare you
Can't wait to hear
do this to me?
Okay.
You have anxiety, my father, undiagnosed depression, and then I come along. You want to know what I'm medicated for? Anxiety and depression.
I didn't know what I know now. And there was a little bit of a hindsight that I know that I'm doing this, and I know that it's impacting my relationship with the kiddos, or it's impacting things that they're doing, right? But I'm just trying to hold my shit together.
But like before you had kids, was that even something that crossed your mind that this something that is going on that I think I'm alone in, that I definitely recognize that I'm going through something, but I'm not quite sure what it is? Was there even a thought of, I might pass this down to my kids before you had kids? No?
No. When you started washing your hands nonstop, it's like, crap. And I knew what I was doing at that point.
And you almost don't realize it until you're around someone else that doesn't have those tendencies. So I very much so had the same thing that you did with, vomiting, freaking me out, and having panic attacks about it and all of that. And now, even as an adult, where I definitely have it under control, or my medication has it under control, it's more under control now, but now living with my boyfriend, and I'll be cooking dinner and just watching him handle raw meat or handle raw eggs or something that could potentially make me sick, I can't look. I feel like I can see, like, his hand, I can see the germs on the chicken, and then I see the germs on his hand, and then I see him touching a cabinet, and then it's on the cabinet and stuff like that. But I didn't realize how different and how severe it was until I'm around people that aren't that way.
Right.
Then I'm like, not everyone has this fear of raw meat. Not everyone has this fear of throwing up. Not everyone feels this way.
So this is also one of the things that really impacted probably our marriage. Is because same thing.
Really?
Yes. If he was cooking, because I don't have control.
I have to walk out. I say, that's it. And he tells me now too. He says, just don't look. He knows the drill. Wash down everything you touch. Don't, cross-contaminate and whatever. He knows all of those things. So I just have to believe that he's going to wipe it down. He's going to take care of it. If I do not look, I just have to make myself believe that he is sanitizing.
Right. Which is an act of love on his part, right?
Yeah.
But it's also a lot of burden, right? And so I think that's what it was also for your dad and I couldn't go out to eat dinner because who knows what was happening in the restaurants. And it drove him crazy because I would have him have to recook things or I wouldn't eat something. And in my mind, I know this is an irrational fear. Yeah, it does. It impacts us.
Yeah.
It also impacts the people that, the important people in our lives. Clearly. And this is one of the reasons why I do the work that I do with families. My background is heavy in maternal mental health, making sure that moms are doing really well because what they're doing is impacting their relationship with their child, is impacting their child's mental health. A lot of people don't understand that, infants do have mental health, right? And so making sure moms are doing really well, making sure anxiety is under control, making sure depression is under control so that they can show their best self for their children and for themselves, right?
Well, and you always say to me too that you're worried when I have kids, especially with my current boyfriend. If we have kids, we both have anxiety and depression. Not only how if I got pregnant and hormones out of whack and how I would feel during being pregnant, but also producing a child that could have my severe anxiety and depression and his combined.
Combined.
Yeah.
Well, and there is a genetic component
Right.
Right? The support system that you would have behind you, particularly like my knowledge.
And being
Right.
aware too.
Being aware and always having someone's eye on you, making sure that you are feeling supported during the pregnancy and when baby's here, right? So making sure that you're supported, and that's a big, huge component of it.
Right.
And we've got eyes on you too.
Yeah.
Eyes like, okay, this is not right, and having a plan, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Having a plan in place. If we're seeing this, then this is what's going to happen. X, Y, Z.
So when you were growing up and you were having these tendencies, OCD, obviously high anxiety and things like that, did your mom notice and did she ever say anything to you?
I don't know. My mom worked 2 jobs, so I didn't see her often. So I don't know how much she noticed. I know that anxiety runs in the family.
So your mom didn't really notice because she was working
Or
hard.
I don't think she noticed.
Or she
right?
might have noticed but said, she'll work it out. Or been like, this runs in the family.
Mhm.
We just don't talk about it, so.
Or we don't know what to do about
Right.
it. I'm guessing there were therapists.
Yeah, did you know anyone that went to therapy? Was therapy like something?
We didn't talk about.
Yeah.
We didn't really talk about, I'm feeling. And to be fair, I didn't have a lot of friends in high school, in junior high. So I didn't really have these open conversations with people. Even having open conversations now with adults, I forget, because for me it's just a natural thing. I will talk about it all day long. I'm fascinated by it, and I forget other people are not as open as you and I about talking about mental health. Yeah, so back then, I don't know. When I was growing up, there had to have been therapists, but didn't really talk to any of my friends about it. Really, even going into for my physicals. I mean, now, I don't know, you tell me, like now I do know that they go in and they have their really quick, 10 questions that they ask. Being on the other side of that, again, I think there's still a little bit of stigma around that when they're doing those checks, because they're not looking at you, they're looking at their pad. I can bullshit my way through. And if you're not looking at my body language and you're not looking at me and you're just, I understand the philosophy is we ask everybody, so we're reducing that stigma, like we ask everybody, but the way they say that, like if you were going to take my blood test or I'm taking your blood pressure, you don't say we do this for everybody. So you're not alone because we're taking your, right? So why preface that with the behavioral health side of it on those questionnaires? Does that make sense?
I almost think that there's a different stigma now. And specifically when it comes to like healthcare, like you maybe wouldn't talk to your doctor when you were growing up about it because they didn't ask about it, because you still felt that I'm the only person going through this and I'm different. But now the stigma is I don't want to answer these questions truthfully, because I know then they will bring in their mental health specialist, then they will bill you for that visit, and then there's a chance that they will have you go to an inpatient facility. So now the stigma is I'm struggling with this, but I don't want to tell someone because I can't afford to take off work to go to a behavioral health facility. I don't want to go in and be trapped for 48 hours or 72 hours. I can't afford this bill of that extra person coming in on my physical. And I see this a lot on TikTok. I see a lot of don't tell them, don't say that, because the next thing you know, you're going to be whisked away and be under lockdown. So I think there's almost a new stigma around it. That we're aware of it, but the reason we don't talk about it now is because we don't want to go to a behavioral health facility because we can't afford it. We can't afford to take off work or all of those things too. So now we're very much so aware that, hey, I should probably be in a behavioral health facility, but who has time?
I don't even know how to respond to that, because that's a side that I hadn't heard.
It is definitely something, and I don't know if it's because of the side of TikTok I'm on that we're all feeling the same way. That algorithm is so specific, but that's definitely a thing of everyone's making a joke. Don't say that because I can't afford this. Don't say that because I, can't get someone to cover my shifts. Don't say that because I don't have someone to watch my kids.
And I think that's also like a small minority, right?
Yeah.
Of people who will be, stepped up for an intervention. Like,
right.
Let's move it up a little bit higher, right? And so that's a really small portion of the population, I'm thinking. But having that put out there, don't tell someone that you are struggling with some sort of mental illness, right? Because it's a pain, it's expensive.
I went to one of those facilities. And some people in there find them to be extremely helpful. Extremely helpful. It's exactly what they needed. But the other half of us are just pissed, and we're not going to absorb anything in those 72 hours that we're there because we are just so angry that we're there.
You thought you were going to a community behavioral health support place where they could talk you through what you were going through, but that wasn't the case.
Right. So my doctor had said to me after filling out that questionnaire, had said to me, you know, if you feel overwhelmed, they had the social worker come in and evaluate me, and they're like, do you feel like you need to take a break? And I'm like, no, I'm okay for right now. I was not. And they said, if you ever need to talk, go to one of these places. They're there 24/7 for you to just talk to them.
And this is a community behavior.
Right.
Okay.
So I had called this place and I said, can I come in and just talk, you know, like, or do I have to like stay? What's the deal? And they said, nope, we have people here. You can come, we'll evaluate you. You can talk it out and we can see where you're at if you decide you want to go or not. I'm like, cool. And we chit chat for about half an hour. They take my blood to make sure I'm not on drugs. They take my urine to make sure I'm not pregnant and whatever. And they're like, well, we are actually going to take you in. So even though I called them and said, can I just come in and talk? And they told me that, you know, we'll talk and kind of decide from there. They did not give me, it was not an option. Mm-hmm. And they said to me, we are going to take you in. This is involuntary. And you can have your cell phone and write down all of the phone numbers that you need, because then we're going to take all of your possessions, like your cell phone. I know a lot of places don't do that anymore, that they don't take your cell phone or whatever, but they took mine before giving me all of my contacts. So I was just kind of stuck in there with only my one memorized phone number, which was my man. And I was pissed.
Yes.
And I was pissed.
So when it goes back to when you're talking about it does help, being admitted does help some people.
Yeah.
Yes. I think also what you're speaking to is this readiness to receive help.
Yeah.
Right? And if you are there, you were not there. I mean, you were looking for some help, but the way it was done to you
made me angry.
It made you angry. You were angry with me. You were angry with the facility. You were just angry. Your sessions were held in the hall.
Yep.
Right? And so...
and they wanted to put me on 2 different antipsychotics after talking to me for 5 minutes. I'm like, this is the first I've seen you in 3 days. You sit down and talk to me for 5 minutes and you want to give me antipsychotics. And then it was $8,000 for a 3-day. And now after going, my experience, there was a girl in there that said that she really benefited from it, and she stayed the whole time. She stayed for like 2 weeks, and she said she really, really benefited from it. And I'm like, that's fantastic, but I'm not in that headspace at all. And I would never go back to a place like that because of how angry I was, how I felt like they were just trying to gouge me for money once I got that bill.
They are helpful. You have to be in the right space, headspace to be able to do it, right? Or not. I don't know. I'm not that familiar with what happens within facilities like that. I know they're very difficult to find, also for those who really do need it.
Yeah.
Spaces and beds are hard to find.
Yes.
Therapists in general are hard to find. There can be a 3-month wait period. Which is really difficult for people who finally, they're in their head going, I don't need anything. They recognize I need something. Then it takes them so long to then reach out and make that first phone call, right? That's a huge step. And then to be told,
we have no space.
We have no space.
Speaking to that, there's also been an uptick of TikToks that I've seen of this, where people call the suicide hotline or helpline just to talk. And they are on hold. So imagine you are at your most heightened emotional, you feel so alone, you call the helpline and you get, please hold.
Okay, that gives me chills.
I know.
Didn't know that was happening either.
Oh yes, and again, I don't know if I'm on a very niche side of TikTok where I'm being shown all of I'm sure I am, where it really isn't that huge of the percentage of people, but even if it's just one person that's put on hold, they should not have a hold button on their phones. They should not have a hold button. It should be, it rings once and someone's there.
Yes, and just as you said in the beginning of this, is that there seems to be more diagnoses happening. Wondering if that is true, or people are just finally now feeling comfortable saying, I need help. The other part is you as, what do you call yourself? It's not an influencer anymore, it's a content creator. What are you?
A creative entrepreneur.
A creative entrepreneur, okay. Yes, this sounds like a really niche set of people that you're working with, and yet it's happening. Right?
Exactly.
And you as the person that you are, the things that you do, your passion around it, what are you doing to really advocate and educate? It sounds like you're already doing it.
As little as this sounds, making a TikTok and talking about it, I made a TikTok that blew up about driving. Okay, so you're on your lunch break from work, you're driving to go get food, and driving back from getting food, you're thinking, you know what, I could just run my car off the road. I made a TikTok about that, and I thought it was such a, like, kind of like you were saying, that you thought you were very much so alone, but the amount of people that were like, oh my God, I have this thought all the time. Just making those TikToks of putting it out there, and then there's someone else out there that is like, I think I'm weird for thinking these intrusive thoughts, these crazy thoughts. People that think I'm crazy and I'm never gonna tell anyone or reach out for help because they're gonna think I'm absolutely nuts. So just making that simple 1-minute TikTok of, I have these thoughts, and then the rush of people who are like, oh my God, I thought I was the only one.
One of the things that I struggle with you is like this medication side of it. And I am all for medication if it is aligned also with the therapy side of it.
And I've been on medication since I was 14, and now I'm 26, and I've probably done therapy for less than a year in that time span.
Right. Because what the medication does is stabilize you enough to be able to then, let's now start taking some of these coping mechanisms, right? And so that's one of the things that I'm going to be honest that I struggle with you being on medication, is that you're not also then following it up with the therapy side and the coping mechanisms.
And I'm on some heavy medication too.
So,
I mean, that's what everyone says, is if you're taking medication, you should also be doing therapy, but...
Well, the medication's easy.
Yeah.
Right? I pop a pill and I feel better, but I'm still not learning these coping mechanisms.
And then you're like, I feel great, I think I'm cured,
And then
I should stop taking my medication. And you're like, oh my God, I'm not okay.
And what we know too is that when you do that, and then you go back on, it's less effective.
I did not know that until probably last year, and I have gone offline and gotten back on it a lot of times, but yeah.
So that would be my wish for you.
That I went to therapy.
With your spare money that you have and your spare time that you have.
I don't have anything to talk about. I'm so sick of talking about it. I'm so sick. Can't I just feel sad inside and not have to explain why? And dig deep? I don't like being, I'm not a touchy-feely, let's talk about why do you feel that way? Let's dig deep. I'll come across my own conclusion. I don't need someone judging me and me paying them $200 an hour.
I still struggle. Went back, I've been in therapy for probably the last 6 months. The reason I went back to therapy because it was impacting how I showed up in my relationships with men. My anxiety was getting in the way of really being able to be present and rational in some of these relationships.
Sorry. I feel that.
So I can show up as being really confident when I first get into a relationship. That confidence tends to be what attracts men to me. I'm really confident when I'm showing up in the relationship. Then once a relationship is established, okay, then I become anxious. I have something to lose. Then I become clingy. If I perceive any distancing from them, then I cling, which is no longer sexy to the guy because now you're just needy. Once they, they're in my, again, perceived mind that they are distancing themselves, then I just say, I'm done. And this poor person over here is going, I don't know what the hell happened here.
I know that feeling.
Okay. So there's also then goes back to attachment theory, all this other stuff. So I was recognizing that, and I was in a relationship with someone that really triggered that side of me And that person actually is that relationship is what.
Is he paying for your therapy?
We're no longer together.
Oh.
Okay, I'm so thankful that happened, because it's like, oh, that was a huge trigger for me. What's going on with this? And what do I do with it in the moment? Because when you're having that moment, it feels so real.
Yeah.
Like, even though your rational mind going, you need to settle down, this is not real, just take a break, in your mind you're going, but it's real right now, and it feels so real. And then you come out of it going, well, damn it. That's why I go to therapy, is because that anxiousness gets in the way of really having a good, firm, healthy relationship. I don't struggle with depression. I think I've had like 3 days where, I would feel really down. I'm going, well, this sucks. I cannot imagine living with this.
But when it comes to depression, right now I'm in a manic place. But I told my boyfriend that, and he said to me, maybe you're not manic, maybe you're just not depressed.
Ooh.
And I was like, because it's lasting a little bit longer than it usually does.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm like,
do you want to sit with that one for a little bit?
I know. I was like, damn. Because he's very depressed. And he asked me, what's it like? And I'm like, I think I'm just manic right now. Getting as much done as I can in this manic time before I hit a 2-week depression where I can't get out of bed, where I'm exhausted, where I don't do my hair, where I don't do my makeup, where I literally do not have a reason to get out of bed. Because that's what it is. It's why would I wake up today? What is there to wake up for? What am I excited about? And I kind of realized this last night, that I think maybe and this is going to be a big statement that might be controversial, maybe the cure to depression, or at least the way to the cure, is finding that one thing in life that gets you out of bed in the morning. Having something to look forward to every day, I think, not cure it, but can help.
So here's a couple things, 2 things, like we tell people who are depressed, okay? One of them is, happiness is a choice. That's bullshit. The other one, when I've said this to you before, and you called me out on that, but it speaks to that, is the fake it till you make it. There is a component to the fake it till you make it. Like, if you just keep doing it, it helps a little bit. If you put on a smile, it does help with your
You're just pushing it down, though.
You're still addressing it. Like, that's what I'm saying. So you're going to be addressing it someplace.
Yeah.
But those 2 phrases, particularly the one that says happiness is a choice.
I think that's bullshit.
That one drives me crazy.
Yeah. Being positive is a choice.
Right.
Being
because
happy
now
is
you're
a choice.
making a decision that you just want to be sad.
Exactly.
Because if happiness is a choice, sadness is a choice.
It's almost like saying you're weak because you're choosing to be miserable. If you're not strong enough to wake up every day and choose to be happy, well, that's on you.
There's a judgment to that statement. There's less of a judgment to fake it till you make it.
Right.
But definitely, I think in my mind, there's a judgment to happiness is a choice.
I think fake it till you make it is more harmful, though, because you're just burying it deep down and you're going to explode and snap at some point.
But then there is some truth, again, with the, I think there's research on if we do put a smile on our face, it does tend to increase our happiness.
The last thing that I would like to talk about, which might be a hot take, which might get me into some trouble, I think that it's trendy to be mentally ill now.
Okay.
And let me explain it a little bit. I think we're overdiagnosing ourselves, and I think it's trendy to be, oh, I have anxiety, I have OCD, I have depression, especially when it comes to influencers, when it comes to content creators, celebrities. I think, just in general, I think that it is a trendy thing among young people to say, I'm so cute and quirky, I have anxiety.
It depends on how it's talked about. So I'm all for celebrities and people coming out and saying, I struggle with anxiety. I struggle through, again,
I'm just a normal person.
Well, it's less about being a normal person, but it's more about you're not alone, right?
And even in the perfect circumstances, you have all the money in the world, you have what seems to be an amazing life, even under the perfect circumstances. people still struggle with it.
Right. And this is the thing about mental illness, as it knows no socioeconomic boundaries. It happens to people who are struggling. It happens to people who are wealthy.
Right.
Across the board. It's access to help. So, do I think it's trendy? That I don't know. I don't know if I can answer that. Because in my world, you know, when you're saying overdiagnoses, I'm looking at my kiddos as young as infants, right? And I'm going, okay, something's up here. Let's just keep an eye on that. Do I think it's trendy? And that, no. I'm just looking out for this kiddo and seeing if we need to put in some early interventions, because we know the sooner, and this is for adults too, the sooner that we address it.
The sooner you realize what's going on and that you're not alone, the easier it is to deal with it and cope and move forward.
So if you have people who are influencers or celebrities and they are coming out and saying, I struggle with anxiety or depression, and that helps somebody, then sure.
How much of it, though, is anxiety and depression and other mental health issues, and how much of it is just day-to-day feelings? How much of it is, I feel really anxious, but also I have a million things going on this week, and that's a natural human emotion.
First of all, if it's negatively impacting your life, then something's going on. And there's like a certain period, like it's for you have 3 days a week for 3 weeks, you know, so it's an extended period long, opposed to there's a lot going on at home, there's a lot going on at work, like the situational stress.
Exactly. Right? I think that people feel stressed or are having a bad day and they're like, I'm depressed. And it's like, are you though, or are you just having a normal tough day like we all have?
Can it be both?
Yeah, you can definitely have depression, but I think what's different is, are you just having a moment of depression, or are you actually dealing with depression on an everyday basis and doing something about it?
How would that change your response to them if you knew that?
One of them is, both are still coping mechanisms, you know, learning how to deal with when you do feel those depressed few days or however long. I don't know. I think that the reaction is still the same, but I definitely feel a little bit bitter and a little bit like negatively towards people that are like, I've just been super depressed lately.
So what I just heard, I'm going to get real here with you.
Okay, I'm ready.
What I just heard is, my depression is so much worse than your depression. Therefore, you really have no right to be able to say that you're depressed.
That's 100% it. And I feel bad about feeling that, because I'm like, if they really are truly dealing with depression, that's great that they're saying it, that they're speaking it into the universe so that someone can help them, or that they can, you know, it's helping them some way. So I feel bad about feeling that way, but I definitely feel that way of saying, you don't deal with depression. I have it so much worse than you. How dare you? You don't even know what depression is. That's what I'm thinking when I see these uber famous people being like, I'm just so depressed lately, or I've just been dealing with OCD. Like, you don't even know the start of it. That's what I'm feeling, and I feel bad about feeling that way.
And then the other side of it too is a person who is depressed, but they know that you're depression. So they're afraid to say anything to you because I'm not as depressed, so I shouldn't be feeling as bad as Paige because she's really depressed, right? But now I have no, like minimizing their own depression.
Right, and you shouldn't do that. You know, people have different levels of depression, anxiety, mental illness, whatever, but I wish I didn't feel that way, but I definitely do.
Okay, first of all, being aware that you feel that way, right, is the first step. So then what do you do with that?
Exactly.
Right? How do you address that? And what's behind that?
Because that goes against everything that I want people to talk about it. I want people to speak it into the universe, because then something can happen where you're changing it or seeking help or whatever. Saying it out loud is like the hardest part. But then it's like, do you really have it though?
Right.
What could you possibly be sad about? You have all the money in the world. You have the perfect job, the perfect family. What could you be sad about?
So that sounds like there's a little bit of resentment behind that too.
I in my mind, I'm like, you're not allowed to be depressed, especially with famous people. And it's hard, because I'm like, I don't want to pass that judgment, because you could be depressed or have any of these issues for whatever reason. It's a chemical imbalance in your brain. It has nothing to do with your lifestyle. Although not all the time. It definitely has outside influences, but...
So everything that we have been talking
I know.
for the last hour...
I know! I know, it gets me, but that's my initial thought of when I see someone like Kendall Jenner saying, I suffer with anxiety, I have OCD, and I'm like, bitch, you don't even know. You don't even know how hard life is.
I'm trying to think how to put this. Only because I imagine what if you had come to me and you said, I'm depressed when you were 14, you couldn't get out of bed, right? And God, I can hear this in the back of my head. I don't know who said it, but what could you possibly be depressed about, Paige? You have a good home, you have a good family, somewhat functional family.
And that's my gut reaction.
Right? So what, as 15-year-old you, and someone said that to you, what would that be your response?
Not good.
Not good.
I'd be like, well, I'm never ever asking for help ever again.
Yeah. And I hear what you're saying.
I know, it's horrible.
Yeah.
It's a toxic little thing, but that is truly when someone says, I feel depressed or anxious today or lately or whatever, it is my initial reaction where I'm not even thinking, I'm like, really?
Yeah.
And then I catch myself and I'm like,
oof. Bam! That takes us to the opening question that you asked. Do I judge your...
Yeah.
Okay.
My gut reaction is judgment.
Judgment. And then
I catch myself and I'm like, I shouldn't be judging.
That's why I hesitated when you asked me that question. Okay? Because we are, as humans, we judge.
Yeah.
But we catch ourselves, hopefully.
Yes.
Before we say anything.
But I think that comes with like learning too, you know, and growing older and wiser and just learning and educating yourself.
Well, okay. And so then that's also one of those coping mechanisms. Okay, I'm feeling a certain way. I'm feeling anxious. Then stopping that, taking those few breaths and going, okay, what am I actually feeling in my body? Where am I feeling this anxiousness? And then what are the thoughts associated with those? And how do you stop those? Because they're irrational. So but that is, again, when I was saying that when you're in that moment, everything feels so real. And that's what we do when we're judging, is we have that momentary judgment. And then we're able to stop it, but hold on.
Yeah, right.
Right? And so it's hard.
It is hard
work.
Because I want everyone to talk about it and I want everyone to, you know, that's my whole thing, is getting rid of the stigma by talking about it. But then when people talk about it, I'm like, really?
Well, even you saying, I don't want to go to therapy because I don't want to have to do the deep work, right? Therapy is exhausting.
I don't want to rehash all that bullshit. I've rehashed it with every therapist I've ever gone to. I've rehashed it with my family. I've rehashed it with my friends. I've rehashed it with myself. I don't want to go into it again. I don't have time for that. I feel sad and I know why I feel sad. Okay, we don't need to delve into the specifics of what happened in that time period.
You don't have to delve, but you have to have an understanding of why you feel sad, and now how do you move forward, right? Because that's what I'm working on for my therapy.
Right.
Of course, I had to quit because insurance isn't working with it, playing nicely, right? And there's another barrier to mental health. But yes, I can recognize, ooh, I had this reaction yesterday.
Yes.
What is behind that reaction, and how could I have stopped it, right? Like having an understanding of why. Because I know why.
Yeah.
I absolutely know why I have these reactions.
Right.
I need to know how to stop it in the moment, right? And
exactly, so that you don't have that initial snap judgment reaction.
Or you go down this rabbit hole of anxiety. That was a great finish.
Do you have any last thoughts?
I love this conversation. Thank you for having it.
Yeah, it's important. I'm all about getting rid of the stigma, and the way to do that is to talk about it. Just like you were saying at the beginning, that you felt isolated and that you were the only one, that you were crazy and whatever. You weren't. Having intrusive thoughts, being depressed, not being able to get out of bed isn't just something that one person is struggling with. You know, and the more we talk about it and the more we realize that it's a shared experience, the more that stigma is going to go away.
And we have to challenge our judgments.
Yes, and learn and just be patient with each other.
Oh, that is so hard.
No. But that's it. You just got to be patient with each other and not just react. Thanks everyone for watching. We should have resolved our audio issues, so we should have listeners too. Hopefully this sounds a little better. If it doesn't, I don't know what to do, but
we're learning as we go.
Yes, and we'll be back next week.
Yay! What are we talking about next week?
Next week. We are doing Reddit advice. So I'm going to search the interwebs for all of people asking for advice from their parents.
Okay.
And they'll put it on this forum called Reddit saying, I need advice, and then everyone can comment and give their advice. So I'm gonna find some good ones where they need motherly advice.
Okay.
And I'm gonna read you everything they say, and we're gonna discuss it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna do next week.
Okay.
Yeah,